Welcome back, folks, to the Rebels Edge. Pete Najarian will be joining shortly, and we'll be talking about those amazing games over the weekend. The 49ers against the Eagles, and maybe even the Bears. We're going to cover sports, stocks, and macro on today's Rebels Edge. Get ready.
And there she blows. Here we go.
Pete, we do have to talk about the Bears, and you know why.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an option.
It's not an
Talk
option.
about the greatest comeback in NFL history.
Wait,
And I know that. Wait, and here's why. So, in training camp, Ben Johnson, the Bears coach, since I know not all of you are living and breathing Bear ball like me, but in training camp, he showed them the game with Tom Brady coming back from Atlanta, Pete, when they were down, huge. And he said, I want you guys to know it ain't over until you look up on the screen and it's 0-0 on the screen, meaning time is run out. Until then, it's anybody's game. And he said, if you believe, we'll make it happen. And by the way, Pete, Matt LaFleur, who we will discuss, the Green Bay coach, who I have a ton of respect for, Pete, not because we beat him, but because I watch every other game that he does. And I watch, the first half of both these recent games that are only 3 weeks apart. I watched both, and I sit there saying, the guy's a brilliant coach. Mm-hmm. If the Packers are stupid enough to get rid of this coach, whose mistake, Pete, was that he has a kicker named McManus, which, by the way, if you take the back part out, it's just anus. If you take that guy's 2 missed field goals and missed extra point, and you say anybody else makes those. I mean, Santos, our kicker, was making a 51-yarder, and this guy's shanking them right and left. You're blaming the head coach on that? You're going to fire your head coach for that? They haven't done it yet, but we're going to talk about it. Am I fired up? Yes.
I'd say so, yeah.
And as difficult as it was, for LaFleur to come out after losing that game and hold his hand out, and Ben Johnson went running by him. Yeah, did they shake? But they didn't shake and talk. He just slapped his hand and went running off because he wanted to party with his players. That's the guy he is. And people want to fire LaFleur? Anyway, all right. Let's talk about macro, Pete. All right. Macro, gold is over 4,600 to the ounce for the first time ever. And why? Well, the stuff they don't show you on TV, Pete. Iran. I mean, are they showing that, the rise of all these protesters that aren't being paid in Iran? Nobody really cares. But the fact that Jerome Powell might be indicted for spending, I don't know, $3 to $5 billion on the Fed's offices? That's what people are protesting? Okay, go ahead. What do you got, Pete?
Well, I would say this. Given the fact that the backdrop of the start of the day, John, was twofold. One of them was the credit card stuff, and we'll talk about that in more detail, 10%. The other one certainly has to be Powell. And the fact that there's this probe and so forth going on, and a lot of folks are coming to his side of things or whatever as well, former governors, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that shook the markets a little bit, but only for a couple of minutes. The markets immediately corrected and started to return back to being close to positive or in the positive side of things after being down more than 0.5% across the board. Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, the whole schmear. And now all of a sudden, a few hours into the day, midday, well, not so bad. So interesting, but I think that the reaction is probably the right reaction as of right now. I think that was an overreaction this morning.
Yeah. And Pete, I saw a quote from Janet Yellen where she said, this raises some serious questions about the Fed's ability to remain independent. So in other words, nobody should question this guy testified before Congress that he was going to spend $1.9 billion. And now it's $0.7 billion or more. It might even be between $3.5 and $5 billion on their headquarters. Let's not forget, the president of the United States knows a thing or two about how much it costs to build an apartment complex or a hotel. And he's seeing this, he's going, we really need to spend that much money on this. By the way, if Yellen was so damn smart, Pete, how come she's the one that was out there saying, the $1 trillion in spending won't impact inflation at all? She totally lost credibility with that. And now she just kind of goes around with this, almost a humpback. Anyway, all right. Let's move on to the VIX, Pete. What do you got?
Well, John, it's interesting because as we were looking at the market down more than 400 points on the Dow and, of course, the S&P and the NASDAQ, everything was getting sold off, right? I mean, that was just the start of the day. We popped all the way up to 1660 on the VIX in a very short period of time. It sat there for maybe a few seconds and then started to drop right back down again, John. And that brings us right back to where are we right now with the VIX? Well, I can tell you where we are. We're probably right back to that same range, 14.5 to 15.5. We've seen it for January so far. Probably going to continue to see that because as of right now, we're at 15 and 30, 15 and a quarter, and it's been just dropping. So we're right back within that same range. It's pretty curious just how quickly we rallied back. And I'll throw in a little something and say, earnings start tomorrow. It kicks off with JP Morgan. And that's part of this thing too, is when you look at JP Morgan and Citi and Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, and I think those investment banks start to crush it. And with that, people wanted to be a part of this run. So all of a sudden the money starts flowing right back into the market.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you said, it was an overreaction. And would the president like more control over who the Fed chair is and or what he or she does? Yeah, he would, but they're pretty insulated, Pete. He nominated this clown, years ago. And so he's the guy, he's to blame. And he realizes that because he listened to advice from a friend of his who thought that Powell was such a good guy. He's been late on every move. Moving rates up? Nope, he was late. Moving rates down? Nope, he was late. And now he just wants to fight with the president. And the president says, maybe you spent a little too much money on this build for your edifice. What's this, the Jay Powell wing over here, Pete, or whatever? So anyway, we'll see what happens with that, folks. But the Fed will still remain independent. You heard it here. All right, let's talk about prediction exchange stuff, Pete. Always love this. And it's not always going to be Polymarket, folks. Yes, I do look at Kalshi as well. But the Iranian regime to fall before 2027, 44% chance, jumped 29% over the weekend. So couldn't happen to a nicer group, Pete, than these guys. And it would be better for the world if they would just leave and let Iran go back to being some sort of a capitalist society, because that seems to be what the people want.
Yeah, it's interesting, John, to see what's going on and how Polymark, like you talked about, and Kalshi, how they're doing some of this predictive stuff is pretty daggone interesting. I mean, it's curious each and every day to see what, where the angles are coming at. But, Yeah, I'll tell you what, the Middle East remains something that seems like it's always bubbling to some degree, right? There's something always going on, and it never seems to be very calm. But you know what? We'll just have to sit and watch, and when we need to step in, I know that we will.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. These are the guys, that regime, not the Iranian people, but that regime is the one that supports Hamas and virtually Hezbollah, virtually every terrorist organization that they can find, they'll throw money at. So anyway, let's dive into what we've got going on in stocks, Pete, because I'm going to say, just as you said, that the credit card, Trump talked about capping credit card fee at, for people that pay over time at 10%, not 27%, like it is for virtually all of them. There are some, I realize, that aren't 27%, but Bill Ackman said, these reward programs are basically sucking the life out of poorer or low income consumers. Couldn't agree more. If you are in the position where you're paying over time, they will crush you, because nobody can make up that 20. You'll pay for the rest of your life, or you'll have to file. And that's what a lot of people end up doing, which is sad. I think they could basically just say, Pete, hey, 6% over Fed funds, that's the cap. And that way, if rates do go up, you're still being compensated for the risk that you're taking, giving somebody credit. But for these banks to cry about how they need 27%, I don't feel for them. I don't feel for them at all, Pete.
Yeah. It's an interesting time with this whole thing, and I think it's something that the president. But what people don't always remember is this is something he has talked about before. This isn't like it just popped into his head just yesterday and he decides to come out with this whole thing. This was something that he talked about when he was running for president as well. So he's basically kind of making sure that he checks the boxes, right? I mean, he's done it with tariffs, and he's now doing it with the credit cards, and giving like you said, it gives mom and pop, Joe and Jane, an opportunity, because instead of that 27%, however it sits, like you just said, 10%, that's fine. But 6% over, sure, that's fine too. So I think that's something that can be fixed quickly. And I think overall, it's just a matter of, how does this whole thing work, and how do they actually implement things the right way? And I think that they'll figure that out pretty quickly. But this is something that for a lot of people, it came out of left field, that weren't paying attention to what the president was talking about when he was running for president this go around.
Well, let's hit a little bit on the TEVA side, Pete, because TEVA Pharmaceutical, they signed a pretty significant agreement with Royalty Pharma, which gives them basically $500 million for the development of an investigational monoclonal antibody targeting vitiligo. And what is vitiligo, Pete? I know what it is, but I want you to tell people what vitiligo
is. You're on your own on that one.
Vitiligo is, something like, I believe, Michael Jackson had, where you've got patches of white and so forth, where the pigment just is out of your skin, I believe. And it doesn't matter if you're a black person, white person, Native American, whatever. If you've got vitiligo, it's going to basically patch up your face, your skin, all parts of your body. And to have something that is that much of in a social atmosphere as we have, I guarantee you a lot of those folks would love to be able to put that behind them. And not everybody has the makeup and everything like Michael Jackson had to cover it up. So stocks up. It hit a new 52-week high today, Pete.
Yeah, it did. Got up and over 35. It was a nice big move. A little bit of it's pulled back down towards there. You can see it closer to 33, but a nice big spike early on for sure. They have a fast track for celiac as well, John. And for people who don't understand that whole thing, that is a nightmare for a lot of different people because of what they are restricted from being able to eat and all the rest of it. So, and that got basically a fast track. So there's something really going pretty well right now for Teva. It's interesting to see how things are going so well. Their revenue that they're expecting to see was somewhere close to $17 billion. So when you've got that and you've got the margins of 26, 27%, I can understand why Teva made the big move that it did today. You know what? I think it's a sustainable move. I don't have any position in there right now, but it's certainly sitting up there, and it has the, all the street cred to be at $35. So if it does pull back any kind of substantial, then I think it's something that we ought to keep a close eye on, John, because they are really moving forward in a big way. And this is the $500 million that's coming from this funding is going to go to all the right places. This should be pretty great.
Well, let's talk about Tempest AI, Pete, because, it's a company that many of you have heard, of course, that medicine is one of the areas where AI could really help cut the cost of investigational drugs and things like that, as well as finding cures for diseases. Well, these guys, Pete, they have precision medicine that is basically artificial intelligence driven. And the shares traded all the way up to almost 76 today and then pulled back, sadly, all the way back down. It broke 70 basically just for a hot second, but is back up over 70 now. It traded to 69.50 or something like that. But the basically growth for the company has been outstanding. But apparently people got carried away when it popped all the way up to 75 and 76 and just let them have it with both hands, right?
Yeah, they had a pretty nice run. This thing's had a great run, over the last year, John. It's up 87% in 1 year. And this number is outrageous. The fact that the year over year, they're up 83% on their revenue for 2025 is that's an enormous number. And it's not just in one specific spot. In the diagnostic spot, John, their revenue was up 111% year over year growth. So this company's doing a heck of a lot of things right. And as you said, the AI doesn't have to stop at just this field or that field. They can be in the healthcare world like that, which is exactly what this company is doing. There's a good reason why it jumped as much as it did. It was up as much as 12%. Last I looked, it was what? Right now, 6%, whatever that is, John, somewhere close to 70. It's had a heck of a nice run. And we're talking about, a total value well over $1 billion. This is a very, very interesting company that I think all of us should probably take a longer look at.
Well, we'll wind it up, Pete, with Abercrombie and Fitch. Now, they plunged after they gave guidance update and talked about the holiday shopping period. And the holiday shopping period was no holiday for them. Basically, I guess they got coal in their jeans or whatever, Pete. Certainly didn't get what Sydney Sweeney brought over there at American Eagle. And so thus, ANF shares trading to the downside pretty hard today. And I don't know that I would jump on this one right away, but certain parts of what they said, Pete, weren't as bad, but an awful lot, and they've come well off the lows of the day. But overall, the stock traded down to 99 this morning. Now it's back to 105, which is still down 15% on the day.
Yeah. Well, they're pumping it. They're punching it pretty hard. You're right, John. I mean, you know what? The outlook was in line, sort of, I guess. They were expecting it to be a raise, and it wasn't. And so that was a bit of a bugaboo for these guys. They talked about the disappointment, like you just mentioned, John, about the holiday sales and that not being where it needed to be. Well, that's a negative. The outlook part that they're expecting maybe gets a lift. That didn't happen, so that's a negative. So you can understand why they're a little bit under pressure right now. And that's exactly what we're looking at. This is a stock, by the way, that does have some huge shorts. Those shorts, if they're smart, are probably debating whether or not it might be time to jump out of that short position or not, John, because potentially, this thing had a pretty nice run to the upside. Could it do it again? Maybe. The balance sheet looks fine. There is a fair amount of shorts out there, so they might want to think about it. But you look at the PE of 11 or 12, I don't know. I think they've sold it pretty strong. And if I'm somebody who was short this one and it's down this much, I think I'd probably start considering if I want to buy a little bit of this back.
Risk management is a big part of trading, folks, not just investing. So Pete's exactly right. If you were lucky enough this morning to come in and see it down 20 some odd percent, to come in and do a little covering at 99 and change, you're certainly feeling pretty smart right now with the stock rebounding back to 105, 106 area. All right. Take a look at this one, Pete, because I thought this was kind of funny. Because, Roger Goodell, everybody's going to tell me he's a genius. And certain things about what the NFL has done are pretty damn smart. But things like putting the NFL on so many different, for instance, whatever. Oh, sorry. There we go. I was going to say, I thought I had a Babylon Bee in there somewhere. NFL announces each quarter of playoff game will be broadcast on a different streaming service. It's a matter of time. I mean, because if you didn't have Amazon, Pete, you couldn't watch the Bears decimate the Packers if you didn't have Amazon. So, do you want to watch this on Peacock? Do you want to watch that on the NFL Network, that on Hulu, this on Disney or ESPN and so forth and so on? It's like, what the hell? Is it really his job, Pete? Basically, take a little money out of every NFL fan's pocket?
Yes. He says it is, so it is. Yeah, that is an amazing thing, John. It really is. I mean, it's frightening that well, anyway, they keep making these deals. I got to say this. I am not a fan of the guy. He's done a lot of things that I don't think make a lot of sense in so many different ways, and things that he could do that could tweak things for the NFL to be even better. But he's got to watch out, too, that he doesn't make it somehow worse along the way. But he's done some things pretty well. Not everything, but some things pretty well. I'll tell you what, just the salary cap and holding on to it alone has been a good move. Why do I say that? Well, let's just think about yesterday's playoff games, all right? Some of the best games we've ever seen at the playoff level. I mean, absolutely amazing to watch. And now the next games that are to come, the 49ers game was phenomenal, right? I mean, the 49ers are out there playing at Philadelphia. It was terrible weather, the whole thing. They had to come back, and they did. And, people can be not fans of Purdy all they want, but I'll tell you what, the kid actually always does seem to step up and do the right thing. If he's got time. He needs a little bit of time, of course, like any quarterback, any good quarterback would need. But that comeback victory was unbelievable. Philadelphia is still kind of shaking their heads, John. And then you got, the Panthers. Carolina gets to host a game. They got the Rams. They've got the Rams in a great spot, and it didn't really work out. And so the Rams end up winning at 31-27 in that game, a comeback of only 21-3. So, pretty amazing just that the games were all so interesting to watch and how they unfolded and which teams were doing what. The Bills and the Jaguars. How about that game? The Bills kind of looked at times like the Bills. I'll tell you what, I still love the quarterback. I think he's still one of the best quarterbacks there is in the NFL. But I'll tell you what, watching that game, you did see a few flaws, I think, in Trevor. I love Trevor, but you know what? That game was a back and forth game, and Jacksonville really had some opportunities. But, at the end of that game, they actually did the thing where they lit a guy into the end zone just so they can get the ball back and hope for an opportunity to get, some points on the board. But all of those things, and then it comes down to the Chargers going out there to New England. You and I talked about that. That is one hell of a long flight, number one. And did the Chargers look like they didn't have very good legs? I would say, yeah. And that offensive line was absolutely pathetic. John, in the last 5 games, they've given up 22 sacks. Now, you mentioned our buddy not being able to be healthy. Yeah. Alt. And so because of that, that was something that hurt. But they did have a much healthier O-line than they had outside of Alt himself. But that guy has gotten sacked this year, John, far more than any year since he's been a quarterback. And I think he started as a quarterback in something like 6 years ago. So 60 sacks they've given up so far this year. So what do you think about those games and what's to come in front of us? I mean, the Niners and Seattle, that ought to be pretty freaking fun game, I would say. What about you?
Oh yeah. I mean, just like the Rams in Seattle was a great game, Pete. Um, I don't know that everybody has to be playing their best game, or Seattle has to make mistakes, because otherwise, I think that team's going all the way. That's just my feeling, and that as a Bear fan, I think that the Bears could play them tough, but if Seattle plays their best game, or not even their best, just plays their high average, and the Bears have to be perfect to beat them. I mean, again, Ben Johnson's going to have to pull another rabbit out of the hat along with Caleb Williams, Pete, for us to, and that's, I'm not already stepping over the Rams. We got to get by the Rams first. So, I mean, that's, Stafford is no joke. That guy, he deserves all the accolades he's got throughout his career in LA, because they didn't love him so much in Detroit, Pete. That's why he's out in LA.
I'll tell you what, the Broncos got the bye, so that's great for them. The Steelers are going to play, so that's something that's going to unfold right before our eyes. That ought to be pretty good. And then we're going to have a little bit better idea of what's going on. But I'll tell you what, when I watch New England, every game I watched this year, John, every time I saw Drake May dropping back and throwing the ball around, the kid's the real deal. I mean, it really is. It's amazing the poise that he has for a guy who's his second year in the NFL. I mean, just a special quarterback. And the coach doing the job that he does, headbutting the guys as they're coming in, sometimes too much, and getting blood all over the place. But I'll tell you what, it has been amazing to watch him coach that team up, get the right defensive players, the right offensive players, receivers that Drake May is able to throw to, all of that. They've done an unbelievable job up in New England. They really, really have. It's pretty special. How about this, John? Basketball. We don't always talk about a lot about basketball and all that kind of thing, but I've got something for you. Indiana is the team of the century, basically, right, in terms of football. Now, they're known as a basketball school. Well, I'm going to go this way. You've got Nebraska, known as a football school. Tom Osborne had multiple national championships. They always were great, right? They had the days in the Big Eight and all that when they were just absolutely fantastic. Well, what if I was to tell you that right now Nebraska's basketball team, John, is 16-0. They're in the top 10 for the first time since 1966. They're sitting in the top 10. And these guys aren't just playing the little sisters of the poor. I mean, here, how about this? They beat Wisconsin 90-60. Wisconsin's usually a pretty decent team in that, in the Big Ten, somewhere in the upper group or whatever. They beat number 13 Illinois 83-80. They beat number 9 Michigan State 58-56. They beat Ohio State 72-69. They beat Indiana, ironic, 83-77. So they do have Oregon tomorrow. Oregon's not that good. I'm figuring that as long as Nebraska keeps this up, they'll be 17-0. You and I both are sitting here looking around at some of the movement that's happened with Indiana and Cignetti and what a great coach he is. How about this Nebraska basketball team, man? I mean, this is unbelievable. And they got the Pinnacle Center, John. It's unreal. It is a phenomenal facility for basketball, and it sits right on their campus, a block and a half away from the football stadium. So, you know what? It's really a lot of fun. And I think it's pretty cool that Nebraska has a basketball team that's playing at this elite of a level.
Our women's volleyball, Pete. I'm not sure women's basketball at Nebraska. Sorry, folks, I didn't look into it. I haven't, but I have watched women's volleyball of all things, because Nebraska plays at an absolutely elite level. So does the University of Minnesota, Pete. So does Wisconsin. But I mean, the Nebraska is so gaga over women's volleyball. They played it in front of people at their football stadium and packed it. I think it's the Guinness Book of World Records, Pete. I think it was something like 80 some odd thousand people saw a volleyball game played at Nebraska women's volleyball. So yeah, they have exceptional athletes. The fans are likewise exceptional. I love the fans at Wisconsin and Nebraska, Pete. And outside of certain sports, they haven't had as much to shout about lately.
Yeah.
especially at Wisconsin. So we'll have to see about what they can do about turning things around there. And well, with Raiola leaving the football team, Dylan Raiola, you tell me, Pete, are they going to have enough to really go after people next year?
You know what? The one good thing about Nebraska, they do have supportive fans, like you were talking about. Great schools, Wisconsin, Nebraska, some of these schools, and they do have money. So that's what it takes in today's games to be able to compete, right? You've got to have the money, number one. All you got to do is look at Indiana and Mark Cuban. That sort of says it all. Michigan, they take a lot of money. Ohio State, loaded with money. Texas Tech, Texas A&M, all of them loaded with money. Miami. So when you start looking around, you better be somebody who's actually able to get that money, because otherwise it's really, really difficult. And that's one thing that probably doesn't get talked enough about for Indiana is, hey, man, they did step up and they did put that money to the next level. And it gave that coach, who's been so great, we all love him, it seems like everybody loves him, because he's so bitter and he doesn't want to smile and all that stuff. It's just phenomenal, because the run that they're on is killer. And meanwhile, he just sits there going, look me up, Google me. All I do is win. Yeah. One of the great
all you got to do is tune in.
What's that?
Tune in tomorrow, folks. Got to go. Bang. Sorry, I got